Councilor Roberts?
Here.
Councilor Stinnett?
Here.
Youth Representative?
Here.
Councilor Boone?
Here.
Councilor Fleck?
Here.
Councilor Soulsby?
Here.
Councilor Irvin?
Here.
Mayor Gowing?
Here. Okay, so we're going to do virtual oaths of office. And so you want me first? Okay.
If you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me and say your name, I
I, Jeffrey Gowing,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will execute the duties
that I will execute the duties
of Mayor of the City of Cottage Grove,
of Mayor of the City of Cottage Grove,
a municipal corporation,
Municipal Corporation,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and will uphold and defend
and will uphold and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws of the United States of America,
and laws of the United States of America,
the state of Oregon,
the State of Oregon,
and the City of Cottage Grove,
the City of Cottage Grove,
and will honestly and faithfully
and will honestly and faithfully
perform the duties of my office.
perform the duties of my office.
Congratulations. Councilor Roberts will be next. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Kenneth Michael Roberts,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will execute the duties of counselor
that I will execute the duties of counselor
of the City of Cottage Grove,
of the City of Cottage Grove
a municipal corporation,
in the municipal corporation
to the best of my
to
ability,
the best of my abilities,
and will uphold and defend
and will hold and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and laws of the United States of America,
and the laws of the United States of America,
the state of Oregon,
the State of Oregon,
and the City of Cottage Grove,
and the City of Cottage Grove,
and will honestly and faithfully
and will honestly and faithfully
perform the duties of my office.
perform the duties of my office.
Congratulations. Councilor Stinnett, you're going to be next.
Okay then.
If you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, John Stinnett,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will execute the duties of counselor
that I will execute the duties of counselor of
of the City of Cottage Grove,
the City of Cottage Grove,
a municipal corporation,
a municipal corporation,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and will uphold and defend the Constitution
will uphold and defend the Constitution
and laws of the United States of America,
and laws of the United States of America,
the state of Oregon,
the State of Oregon,
and the City of Cottage Grove,
and the City of Cottage Grove,
and will honestly and faithfully
and will honestly and faithfully
perform the duties of my office.
perform the duties of my office.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Councilor Irvin. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Greg Irvin,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will execute the duties of City Councilor
that I will execute the duties of City Councilor
of the City of Cottage Grove,
of the City of Cottage Grove,
a municipal corporation,
a municipal corporation,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
and will support the Constitution
and will support the Constitution
and laws of the United States of America,
and laws of the United States of America,
the state of Oregon,
the State of Oregon,
and the City of Cottage Grove,
and the City of Cottage Grove,
and will faithfully perform the duties of my office.
and will faithfully perform the duties of my office.
Congratulations.
Okay, item 4 is the state of the city, Cottage Grove, January 11th, 2021. 2020 was a rough year. The coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic, the likes of which the world has not seen since 1918. The sudden passing of one of our own city councilors and friend Bob Ehler. The wildfires which created the worst natural disaster in history of Lane County. The smoke from all the fires around the west that shrouded our community, civil unrest in our country, and the very decisive state, federal, and political environment. As 2020 started, I had great hopes for the year. We had just recovered from a 50-year snowstorm. We had some amazing events and activities planned for the year. However, through a rough year, I was so proud of the way the citizens of Cottage Grove responded to all the challenges of 2020. It really makes me proud to call Cottage Grove home. We all came together, even with different views and values and opinions. Even while facing our own challenges, we stepped up and generously helped our neighbors. 2020 got off to a great start with the city purchasing 300 trees to give away to community members to plant during the year to help replace some of the trees that we lost in the previous snowstorm. EPUD gave a donation of additional 50 flowering dogwood trees to be included in the giveaway. The tree giveaway was a great success. 215 trees were given away, and the remaining trees planted on city property. We also were excited last year to present the 2020 South Lane County Resource Guide, which was a rebirth of the resource guide previously prepared and published by Diane Miser. It had not been a publication for several years after Diane's passing. The new resource guide even included a digital version of the guide to be available online. Over 2,500 copies of the resource guide were distributed, with more copies wanted. Little did we know the guide would become a very valuable to our citizens to get in touch with the resource as things began closing down in March as a result of the pandemic. The 2021 edition of the South Lane County Resource Guide is currently being printed and will be out for distribution soon. What was amazing is throughout the pandemic, when everything was changing or closing, digital versions were regularly updated to keep citizens informed and help them find valuable resources they needed. As we started to recover, the digital guide will again be a valuable aid for the steps to recovery. We made major sacrifices during 2020. We are all affected. To protect our friends, families, hand washing, masks, and social distancing have become the norm. Businesses have closed or operations restriction. Schools closed. Events and activities canceled. Everything that makes Cottage Grove so wonderful seems to have been quarantined. We have found ways to stay connected with our friends and families through cameras and screens. We conduct meetings, hold conferences, and spend time with each other virtually. It is still not the same, and we long for the days when we can shake hands, hug, meet together, or just stand closer than 6 feet to each other. It will happen. Some of the changes we have made will likely endure beyond the pandemic. One of the changes that I hope does not become permanent is the closure and damages of our local small businesses. Those small business represents the real community members, parents, friends, and neighbors to all of us. Whether they are owners that had a dream to run a small business and serve a need in the community, or employees that make those businesses work, I hope that we can all step up and help them recover and restore the community back to what it was and better than before the pandemic hit. I'm happy that the city of Cottage Grove acted early and designated $100,000 loans, eventually used a portion to match state funds for grants for our local businesses. We were able to leverage a portion of our $100,000 to secure additional funding for local businesses. As a result, in partnership with Lane County, using state and county funds, we were able to provide 11 grants to Cottage Grove businesses totaling $85,000 and 3 loans totaling $30,000. Loan funds will remain, and we as a council may need to look at other ways of possibly using the remaining funds. More assistance is needed. Our local business not only provide jobs, but they are a big part of making all of our events and activities in the community a success. They support the concerts in the park, youth sports, school activities, Bohemia Mining Days, our museum, and so much more. They make living in Cottage Grove wonderful. And as we begin to recover, let's do all we can to restore the whole community. Tonight, I want to start by requesting the City Council to consider waiving the liquor renewal fees for businesses in Cottage Grove that had to close operations during 2020. It is a very small start, but I will be working with the city manager to explore other opportunities to assist and hope bring back more to City Council for consideration. The City Council has already removed licensings and fees for taxi services in 2020, and tonight we'll be considering an ordinance to remove the license and fee requirements used for used merchandise business. I'm sad to say this barely scratches the surface of the impact of our community members have felt during the result of COVID-19 restriction. I have voiced and will continue to voice my concern to state and county leaders regarding this impact. Our city staff has partnered with the Chamber of Commerce in Lane County to search and advocate to expanded support for local businesses. However, in spite of what 2020 threw the community, we have positive things through the year. There are so many in the community that deserves recognition for how they have weathered and what they have contributed to the community during this rough year. I have selected 3 to be recognized tonight for their contributions. First, I'd like to start with the Covered Bridge Brewing Company. They opened in one of the less desirable times, but were following their plan rather than the pandemic. And they partnered with so many other businesses to be successful, bringing food carts to provide different venue for dining, partnering with Buster's to have breakfast and lunch delivered. And I think they chose the perfect name for their beer, partnering with the Coastport Brewing Company collaboration. That is what they've been doing since they opened, and is an example of the type of business community that Cottage Grove is. Thank you, Chrissy. I see you're here. We have a certificate for you that you can pick up tomorrow. Next, I would like to recognize Ernie Olson. Ernie has a lot on 16th and Main that he wanted to develop as a retirement project. When Clarence the Waiver passed away, I asked Ernie for permission for the city to put a bench on his lot. Ernie was more than willing to allow this. Since that time, he has transformed the lot into a unique piece of property with 2 retail business spaces on the ground floor and 2 apartments on the second floor, one in which he lives in. The best thing about it is the unique landscaping that's been done. Bringing sculptured art is becoming an attraction to the community and will attract more people into our business community. And Ernie's here tonight. Thank you, sir. And the last one I want to do is, for the first time to my knowledge, I would like to recognize an outstanding youth, Ethan Bearden Tatum. Ethan saw a need to think outside the box for Halloween, since we were unable to have a celebration as we have had normally in the past. Working with the city, Main Street, and the Chamber, a drive-through Halloween was put in place. It was a very successful event and allowed us to still provide a festival for the community. So Ethan, I have a certificate for you as well, and you can pick that up at the city.
Thank you. Woo!
Okay, I'd also like to take a moment to congratulate Councilor Jake Boone for a successful term as president of the League of Oregon Cities during 2020. Councilor Boone demonstrated resilience, leadership, and flexibility as president during the year that demanded nothing less. But 2020 was not all bad. Even all of this in the community has stepped forward with positive results in addressing the community needs. Prior to 2020, City Council had recognized a drastic need for housing in the community. The housing needs analysis showed a dire need for additional dwellings units across all types of housing. 2020 saw great strides in addressing the housing shortage in our community. In 2020, we saw 29 single home complexes, 1 duplex, 1 triplex, 1 fourplex, 9 tiny homes in the Cottage Village Coalition, 4 tiny homes in the Homes for Good Legion cottages, which I am proud to say are housing 4 veterans, one of which was displaced by the Holiday Farm Fire, 3 accessory dwelling units, 6 land trust homes with Dev Northwest, 37 new units in Magnolia Gardens, and if my math is correct, that's 97 new dwelling units when the housing needs analysis in our community goal was 69 this year. 2021 is looking even better for housing. We have 4 more tiny homes at Cottage Village underway. 14 town homes are currently in approval process. A 42-unit apartment complex is also in the process, and discussions are underway for an 84-unit development that plans to bring on being completed by the end of the year. What a great start. I look forward to even more opportunities to continue to address the needs for unsheltered individuals. Last fall, the city learned that beds for freezing nights would not be able to operate cold weather this season. It is also exciting that after a short turnaround, the city and community sharing have partnered to open a warming shelter. With the assistance of Lane County, the project is ready to go. Trainings were held last week, and I believe we're waiting for a cold night to activate. Later in the meeting, we may get a report from Councilor Fleck on the project, since he is quite familiar with this project as Director of Community Sharing. In addition to the warming shelters, the city and community sharing have also partnered with a shower trailer. The trailer is under construction and should be here late this month or early February. The city purchased the shower trailer, and the community sharing will operate the program to provide showers for those in needs in the community. The shower trailer will also fill emergency response needs. Our city staff has done amazing work in 2020. Staff took extra steps to stay safe and maintain services in the community. While many other government organizations closed and services became cumbersome to access, our employees innovated and found safe ways to interact and continue to provide valuable services. For example, the community had no business providing notary services. The city staff continued and found ways to provide service by appointment. In previous years, city staff normally perform 180 notary services. In 2020, they performed over 385 for service. Staff kept court functioning. Library reopened with limited staff and was providing curbside service as well as delivery, books on wheels for those that are homebound. Building inspections were done virtually with videos or photos. City staff is using the closure to perform major remodels in the community center and armory to be ready when the senior center, senior disability service, and genealogical library can reopen. In order to continue to safely provide services, we have installed air purification equipment in city buildings with HVAC systems. The equipment will address air quality under the current pandemic, as well as provide another layer of treatment to remove smoke or other pollutants. This opens the community center and city hall as possible locations for respite in case of wildfire smoke. Although the pandemic and the wildfire smokes did slow a number of major projects, that were quickly nearing completion. Safe Routes to School project and related water, wastewater, and stormwater work is near complete. The final paving should be occurring in the next couple weeks, depending on weather. This was a huge project and had many interconnected parts with other utility providers in school district. It will be a major safety improvement for the youth of our community for years to come. As a result, the city's efforts of acquiring grant funding, local property owners will not have to face the costs expected for special requests and additional work. Even with the number of unexpected issues that were uncovered during the project, it still continues to be under budget. As many of you have probably noticed, the large pond that has been constructed just north of Cottage Grove Connector. The pond will store treated water from the wastewater plant so it can be used for irrigation. The water plant has also been expanded to provide an additional 2 million gallons of water treatment capacity. All these improvements were designed and implemented to responsibility and sustainability provide for further needs in the community. I want to close by thanking the citizens and staff and my fellow city councilors for the time and efforts they have dedicated to making the community a better place. Around the world and country, the norm seems to be just to sit at home and fire off complaints on social media and attack those that are trying to do something or in extreme cases cause damage to private property. I am glad that it still is not acceptable behavior in Cottage Grove. When a need is seen, the people here step up, get together with others, and they actually do work. They contribute resources and spend their time fixing or helping or supporting others. Thank you. I'd like all of you to look forward to the day that I can remove this mask and go to the gym or a local restaurant or sit in the park and listen to the concerts. Those days are coming. This will all be eventually, and by working together, we will be better because of it. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to item 5, items to be added, and we're going to add a statement to business of the city council, so it would be item F, and then concerns of council will be item G. So item 6 is appearance of interested citizens for items
Mr.
not
Mayor?
on the agenda. Yes.
To add the item, you'd need to have the unanimous consent of the council.
Oh, okay. We don't do this as often, so.
No, we don't.
Was everybody okay with it? Mr.
There needs to
Flack?
be a motion and a vote on it,
I
yeah.
was going to make a motion that we add that to the item, that item to the agenda
Second.
statement.
Got a motion with a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Great.
Okay, so item 6 is appearance of interested citizens for items not on the agenda. This is a time for citizens to comment on items not on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. Individual speakers must be recognized by presiding officer, provide their name and address, and will be allowed up to 5 minutes or less with council approval. Comments regarding any matter scheduled for public hearing may be provided only in that hearing. Comments on agenda items may be taken prior to council's discussion on that item. Council will not engage in any discussion or make a decision based on public comment at this time. However, the council may take the considerations under advisement and discussion and action for a future council meeting. Anyone wish to speak? Seeing none, we will move on. Item 7, there is no public hearings. Item 8, consent agenda.
Move approval?
Second.
I have a motion with a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, item 9, resolution and ordinance. Second vote, ordinance number 3135, amending chapter 5.28 of the Cottage Grove Municipal Code regarding used merchant business. Ms. Soulsby,
Is this where I recuse myself? So I
Thank
need to
you.
recuse myself because I have a
Yep.
store that sells. Okay.
thank you.
So You have before you Ordinance 3135 for a second vote. This is the ordinance to remove the license fee and license requirements for used merchandise businesses. It creates a registry instead, which would be maintained by the police department. And most of the information stays kind of the same. The reporting requirements and record keeping requirements are significantly reduced, and the amount of time that the records would have to be kept is also reduced. There are a couple of items that are added to a list to include others in possible as a used merchandise: cell phones, personal electronic devices, and computers, which when this ordinance was when the original code provisions were adopted, were not around, and so they've been added as a part of this ordinance. The penalty clause is also removed, and we have received a draft for a general penalty clause that'll be in our code that is not as restrictive as the old one. Will be included, and we'll bring that back to the council in a future council meeting.
Mr. Fleck,
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council adopt ordinance number 3135.
Second.
I have a motion with a second. Is there any discussion? Anyone from the audience wish to discuss? Seeing none, will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Roberts,
Aye.
Counselor Stinnett,
Aye.
Youth Representative,
Aye.
Counselor Boone.
Aye.
Counselor Fleck,
Aye.
Counselor Irvin,
Aye.
Mayor Gowing.
Aye. Okay, so 3135 is adopted. Brings us to item 10, business from the City Council. Item A is Municipal Court Judge Contract Renewal and Amendments. Mr. Myers.
You have before you the amendments to the contract for the municipal court judge. You held his performance evaluation in December at the previous council meeting. The evaluation is also included in your packet as a part of the record there, and so we're asking for the council to approve the amendments and the renewal of the municipal court judge, and also adopt the performance evaluation.
Mr. Fleck,
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council approve the renewal and amendments to the municipal court judge contract and authorize the mayor to sign the contract amendments. And I guess and accept the evaluation.
Second.
I have a motion with the second. Is there any discussion? Anyone from the audience wish to comment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, item B is the Tmdl implementation plan background and erosion prevention standards. Ms. Ferguson.
Good evening, Council. So the memo that's before you walks you through the history of the Tmdl implementation plan in Cottage Grove to try to provide you some background information for the next item in the agenda, which is our proposed draft code for surface water management. The memo that I presented to you is for your discussion and information, and I'm happy to answer questions. Generally, what it walks you through is that we originally adopted a Tmdl plan through City Council in 2008 based on the Tmdls that were established by DEQ in 2006. Tmdl stands for the total maximum daily load, and under OAR 340-42-025, Oregon Administrative Rules require that any jurisdiction that's called a designated management authority within Oregon that has a river or stream that is placed on a designated list by EPA or DEQ for being water quality limited for a specific bacteria, mercury, temperature, or other contaminant, has to develop a total maximum daily load implementation plan to try to reduce those contaminants within their river. So we adopted our first plan in 2008. The city has updated and revised that plan every 5 years since then. We're currently working on the revision that was written in 2018 and goes until 2023. We also give DEQ a report every year annually that shows our progress to meeting those goals. Since the council adopted the plan in 2008, we've been trying to meet those same goals from 2008. Many of them have just been rolled forward as we've progressed over the last 12 years or so. And we are at this point trying to meet the last remaining of the goals that we originally promised that we were going to try to meet in 2008. One of those being erosion control and the adoption of standards to try to mitigate the stormwater being contaminated by construction site debris and largely dirt that is coming off of construction sites. So that, because that debris that is going into our stormwater impacts our rivers by carrying extra bacteria, mercury-laden particles from sediment, and additional, it reduces the temperatures or increases the temperatures in the river by increasing TSS, which is total suspended solids. So at this point, do you have any questions regarding the memo that I presented or the background data that was also presented?
Mr. Fleck?
I don't have any questions. Just want to thank Amanda. There was actually an awful lot of information that's very valuable in looking at the background behind, some of these rules we're passing. So I appreciate it.
Mr. Irvin?
I also wanted to thank Amanda for going over all of this, putting this together for us. I think we have a couple more items similar to this on the agenda, but if the solids, if dirt is the main issue that we're trying to prevent getting into the stormwater system, I wonder if there's any attention being put on log trucks coming in through town off of gravel roads. Just trying to think of what would be the biggest contributor of dirt that's getting into the systems. And this addresses construction, but what about all the other ways that things are coming in? Would this be the plan to address those things, or is it just a kind of a single prong approach, or you can address that?
Councilor Irvin, I would state that one of the key components of our plan that we instituted years ago is our streets sweeping program, and that we have a pretty robust program for the size of our city. When the street sweeper is up and operational, it's out there every day sweeping the streets. And so that captures the soil that's brought in from outside vehicles into our community and helps keep it out of the storm system. So that's probably one of the most effective ways that we're doing, trying to capture that material.
I guess that begs the question then why do we need more than street sweeping if it's capturing it?
And I can answer in part is because the street sweeper is only functioning basically around the city once a week. So construction sites, if they're they can be right next to a storm drain and put a lot of material into the river right almost before the street sweeper can ever get there.
And to answer your question on the log trucks, back in the mid-90s, they made a requirement through ODOT that if you had a fleet, you had to have a truck wash to keep them maintained, to keep that out of there. So do we need an action plan on this, Ms. Ferguson? Just information?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, that brings us to item C, proposed modification to draft the code 14.35 surface water management. Ms. Ferguson.
So this is a follow-up conversation to the conversation we began at the last city council meeting. as we were just speaking about, in order to comply with the provisions of our Tmdl implementation plan, we've been preparing an ordinance to establish construction site erosion control standards. Over the last decade, we've laid a lot of work for the adoption of this standard. We've been trying to work systematically throughout our code in order to capture all the things that made sense first: hillside standards, riparian development standards. We've improved our floodplain development standards. We adopted a grading standard. We've been working on illicit discharges, etc. We've also been improving our stop capacity, and we've been doing a lot of education of both our staff and the public on riparian issues and water quality concerns. And we've made major strides, of course, within our own wastewater and drinking water systems. The adoption of construction site erosion control standards is the next strategy that we need to implement to meet our water quality goals. Education about and enforcement of these standards will lead to less sediment in our stormwater, which will lead to less mercury and bacteria contaminating our rivers, and reduced total suspended solids within the river, which will lead to cooler water and hopefully happier fish. At the December 21st City Council meeting, the discussion regarding the proposed surface water management erosion prevention ordinance led to council requests to modify the original proposed ordinance, which is before you. We have proposed modifications to the original draft that was presented in December to ensure that non-construction oriented development, such as gardens and landscaping, will not trigger the requirement to obtain an erosion prevention permit, because that was never the intent. The modified proposed ordinance was attached to this memo. The text was highlighted in red. The key components are, rather than it saying that a permit is required if you disturbed more than 500 square feet of material during any phase of development, we've removed that line and are proposing instead to add the two following lines that say an erosion prevention permit would be required if it's located within the public right-of-way, like a driveway curb cut, and requires permits from the Cottage Grove Engineering Department, or requires a building permit or sewer water line permit from the City of Cottage Grove Public Works and Development Department. Specifically, what we're trying to do is tie this code specifically to things that are already triggering building permits. The other small change that we have proposed is on page 8 of your memo. It's changing the threshold for a development site for impervious lot coverage from 50% to 60%. The reason why we're recommending that is actually because we changed last January the lot coverage standards for medium density residential up to 60%, and we're just trying to match that so that if you're developing a house like normal in R2, you wouldn't be triggering these standards necessarily just because you'd be meeting current lot coverage allotment. So that was the minor code modification that we're proposing. The other changes are really more, the only other change occurs on page 9 under the section of waiver erosion prevention permit, and it's just referencing back to the original change. So this is presented to you right now for your discussion only. After review, discussion, and any further modifications that you may propose that we make, the ordinance will be brought back to council for a public hearing and possible adoption at a later meeting, most likely in February.
Mr. Boone.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Well done. I like the changes. It seems to really artfully deal with the stuff we were struggling with, you know, how big is too big, how small is too small. Yeah, I like this, and I assume we need a motion, right? No? Okay. Well, then I'm for it.
Mr. Fleck?
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. I think that these changes absolutely address the concerns we had around large gardens or other sorts of things that, you know, typically would not need a permit. So hey, thumbs up. I think that's great work.
Right. Everyone else okay? Thumbs up?
Thumbs up. Thanks very much.
Is it what you need?
Yes, and we'll see you again later in February on this issue. Thank you.
Okay, so item D is Planning Commission appointments. Ms. Ferguson, it's your night for meeting.
I guess so. So you have a memo before you that is also directed from Councillor Fleck regarding Planning Commission appointments. We had 2 vacancies as of December 31st on the Planning Commission. Both Chloe Beckus and Bo Soulsby's terms had ended. So we opened and requested applicants. We had 2 applicants, which were Chloe and Bo. The council subcommittee that was created by the city council a few months ago decided not to hold interviews and are recommending to council now the reappointment of Chloe Beckus and Bo Soulsby for 3-year terms that would start this January.
Mr. Boone?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I move that Chloe Becks and Bo Soulsby be appointed to the Planning Commission for 3-year terms that will expire on December 31st, 2023.
Second.
I have a motion with a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item E is Budget Committee appointments. Ms. Likens.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. The Budget Committee has 3 vacancies. 2 were from expiring terms of Tom Monroe and Don Rust, and the 3rd is from the resignation of Bernard Donner. 3 applications were received for the 3 open positions. Those submitting applications were Don Rust, Chalice Savage, and Armando Garza. It's the subcommittee's recommendation to appoint Don Rust and Chalice Savage to the full 3-year terms expiring December 31st of 2023, and Armando Garza to fill the term vacated expiring December 31st, 2022. So it's staff's recommendation that you consider making the appointments to the Budget Committee as recommended by the subcommittee.
Mr. Irvin.
I move that we appoint Don Rust and Calla Savage to the full 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2023, and Armando Gaza to the term that was vacated that will expire December 31st, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion with a second. Any discussion?
Thank you for applying. Thank you, especially during this time. Just appreciate getting applications.
No more discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, brings us to item F, a statement. As we talked about, I signed a statement with a lot of the other mayors throughout the county on the actions at the Capitol, and we have one now on screen that's for the whole council to support. Mr. Myers, do you want to talk about it, or
Yes, what you have on your screen is basically the statement that was prepared by Lane County and signed by the Lane County Board Commissioners Chair, Mayor Lucy Vinnis, Council President Steve Moe in Springfield, our Mayor Jeff Gowing, Mayor Kathy Nickel Holston of Oak Ridge, the Mayor Melody Cornelius from Westford, and Mayor Ray Smith of Coburg. And they specifically asked that it be the mayors and chairs to sign this originally as it went out from the county, primarily to get it out quickly and to not have to wait for a meeting. But if you have it here before you that you can read, and I can read it out loud if you want me to, but this is basically the short statement that was issued last week as a result of the riots and destruction at the Capitol, the U.S. Capitol. And you have it before you if the council wishes to also sign on and support that statement.
Mr. Fleck?
I move that the council support signing on to this letter along with the other entities that have done so previously.
Second.
Have a motion with a second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Fleck?
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing this forward. I appreciate your leadership, Mayor Gowing, in signing this. But I'm glad that the council as a whole can support it. This is about democracy, not about partisanship, favorites, unfavorites. This is about America and our democracy. And so I think it's very strong that people's all parties and backgrounds support our country's rules and standards, and if they disagree, to do it peacefully. So I really appreciate you bringing this forward.
Ms. Roddy.
Okay, yeah, I really appreciate this. I think that from a youth point of view, this is a real leadership opportunity and respect from the council. I think the language makes sense for what we're doing. It talks about today, and if it said the dates, it might be better, but I don't know if we're allowed to change the language, but I fully support this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to comment? Anyone from the audience wish to comment? Ms. Buck.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to appreciate the signing on by your local city and councilors to this particular letter. You know, our chair was the one that signed on behalf of us as a board. And I think it includes the idea of maintaining our democracy regardless of any political persuasion. We know that we're very partisan now in our country, but this shows that we together in our own communities, in our own Lane County, know the difference between what is right and wrong, and commit to working together to maintain a sense of knowing that we can internally all work together. We commit to that, and so I appreciate you bringing this forward to your council.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Irvin.
Yeah, I want to qualify my support for this in that it says we cannot mistake what is happening today in Washington, D.C. for a lawful or peaceful assembly. It doesn't mention specifically the unlawful acts, the rioting, the breaking and entering, the disruptions that occurred. There were a lot of people there peacefully assembling that aren't included in that. So I would qualify my support to recognize it. I am condemning the unlawful acts.
Okay. So we have a motion with a second. There's no more discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's better. You're all bigger again. Okay, that brings us to concerns from council. Well, you guys were at the same time. Mr. Boone, you're up higher on the screen, so I'll go with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received an email from a constituent about some contractors who left some debris on a sidewalk. The constituent included a narrative and some photos and asked me to bring this up with the city staff at the next meeting. This is that meeting, so I will be forwarding the email to you, Richard, and you can see what needs to be done and who you got to talk to.
It's been cleaned up.
We have Faye, do you want to comment on it? We've received it also from others.
Okay. Sure, thank you. Councilor Fleck forwarded it to myself, I believe Saturday afternoon, evening. So there was a couple specific items that were mentioned in it. The first was the contractor that was out there working that day is a subcontractor for, I believe, one of our utilities. And they installed a pole and they left some rock and debris on the sidewalk, and also the cable that was attached to one of the poles they removed was laying in the park strip and partially on the sidewalk. I wish the individual would have contacted city staff, because we would have mobilized and went out and taken care of cleaning up the mess, and appreciate the individual doing it, but we would have liked to have done that. Generally in the process, we issue a permit, and then the contractor is to follow the instructions in that permit while doing the work, and then notify the city staff when it's completed, and then we go out and do a final inspection. So we weren't notified that they were actually working that day, and certainly weren't notified that the work was completed. So we had no knowledge that this had taken place, and really wish we would have been contacted directly by the property owner so we could have taken care of it. We are in the process of formulating a letter to the subcontractor to do the work with concerns that the items that were left were unsafe in the public right of way, and also that the debris left there needed to be cleaned up and out of our gutter pan. The pictures did show some material that had washed into the gutter pan, and that's one of the items that we addressed in the erosion control item that we discussed earlier. This would have been one of those that we would have liked to have seen all that cleaned up and not be sitting in the gutter pan through the weekend when it could have potentially been washed down into the storm drain. The second item had to do with some previous work that took place. This one's a little challenging because the contractor that did the work actually performed the work to the specifications that were required by staff. Generally, when we have contractors do utility work and install conduits and do various different things, one of the items that we require is that they backfill their construction ditch with compactable rock so that we get a good compaction and it doesn't settle over time. And that we request that they can put topsoil on the top of it. We worked with the landowner because he expressed concerns about there not being dirt there to plant a shrub. So we've been in the process of actually working with the contractor that did the work and excavating out the material and putting in reinstalling soil so that the shrubs that the landowner wants to plant can be constructed. So the second item that I discussed, actually, they did follow the permit and do what was required by the city. We will review our requirements and see if there's a need to include some better definitions of topsoil and material that's put into those park strips for replanting to grass or potential shrubs in the future.
I think it might be also important to note that if we'd have been called on Friday afternoon at 3:30, 4 o'clock when somebody noticed that the workers had left and they'd left a mess, and we'd called out and come and done the work, that's something we could have billed the contractor for the time and efforts that we put in to clean up their stuff that they didn't do. So, I mean, that's an important piece that we also want to make aware of.
Thanks.
Any other concerns? Mr. Roberts.
I'd like to thank the city and community sharing for doing the warming shelters. I took the course with Mr. Fleck. It was very well done. I was really impressed with the ladies from Lightbird using some of the work from Cahoots on de-escalation. And I'm looking forward to getting more involved in this. So, Mike, thank you for putting together a great staff on that. You hired some, looks like good people. Looking forward to that. Also got a chance to tour the community center and talk to the folks at the library. It's just amazing what's going on over there. Our community is going to be quite happy when we get through this COVID with what's in that building. You can't even tell that the therapy pool was there. Just an amazing job. And I want to thank the voters for giving me a second term. And I really also want to thank Chalice Savage. She said she wanted to get involved, and now she's on the planning commission. So congratulations, Chalice.
Budget committee.
Budget committee, yes, thank you. That's it.
Mr. Fleck.
Yeah, so the first item was the one from Mr. Toddy that I was going to bring forward. The other thing, Mr. Mayor, is yes, I will definitely speak about the warming shelters. So just a little bit of background. Early on, this season, but kind of late into the planning stage of warming shelters, beds for freezing nights were unable to get the volunteer support they needed to operate. And I want to commend our city manager. Our city manager immediately facilitated a meeting between myself and the BFN folks, and the three of us sat down to look forward to how could we move forward and have this shelter operating. Then with the help of the county and the pallet shelters, the city, as you all know, put in the infrastructure, and our organization began planning to operate a shelter. And we had a little bit of criticism last week, which I'd like to address, is, you know, our agency has never operated a shelter. And so this has been quite an undertaking for our agency. We had to get a contract amendment in place. We had to hire people. We've had to create operating manuals. We've had to, get our insurance to make sure that we're covered, and on and on and on. I won't bore you with the details, but it's been a huge lift to get going. And I myself have been frustrated by how long it's taken us. I mean, it's taken us a couple months to be ready to operate. And that is frustrating, but I do want to say that I'm glad we've stepped up, and I'm glad that we're going to be operating. With that training, we now have 3 folks hired to actually be on site. We have another 3 that we're going to be hiring, and we will randomly have those folks on site along with volunteers. As you guys know from the stuff we've mentioned, when activated at below 30 degrees, we will have at least 3 people on site from 7 p.m. to 8 a.m. And we will try to provide food on site. We're actually trying to get some other really cool stuff in. Occupy Medical, we've reached out to see if we can do some COVID testing. We've reached out to South Plain Mental Health to see if there's, you know, some opportunity for some on-site counseling. All of those things are in flux. We're not sure if we'll be able to put them together during the coronavirus or not. But there's a lot of things that we're, you know, trying to do a little differently. What a couple of the huge advantages of these shelters is that folks in the previous congregate settings would not be able to actually be with their spouses and or children. In these environments, we're going to be allowing the family units to stay together. And there's a couple of the larger units if the family sizes are bigger. The other nice thing is about pets. In the churches, that created huge obstacles. We'll also be able to allow folks to have their pets with them. So we're actually really excited. Excuse me, got a little bit of a frog. We're really excited to be operating. Next time it gets cold, we will send out alerts via the same mechanism Beds for Freezing Nights did. So keep your eyes open if we activate. If you're a volunteer and if we have not reached out to you, please contact us. Community sharing is 541-942-2176. Or you can email info@communitysharing.org. and let us know you're interested. We'll get you, we took a video of the training that Councilor Roberts mentioned. So we'll have folks watch the training on de-escalation. We're also gonna have some training on site for the activities. And I'll stop there because it's actually really complicated, but I did want to give you guys an update.
Thank you. Anyone else? Miss Roddy.
Okay, for the Youth Advisory Council, we're asking that the council consider sponsoring the If I Were a Mayor contest. We talked it over and it sounds like we have a couple members that want to participate. So we want to ask if you guys would sponsor a local contest for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would love to see you guys bring that and do a really good job because I don't like losing to Elgin.
And we can bring that to the council at a future meeting and have you officially adopt and move forward if you're interested.
Mr. Stennett.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for a minute or so to address the group. I've spent, maybe like a lot of you, spent the last few days gathering my thoughts, and I just took an oath to defend the Constitution. So I think they're worth stating right now. I'd like to thank the council once again for appointing me early last September. It showed a real vote of confidence, and I do appreciate that. I'd like, despite not having an opponent, I'd like to thank the citizens of Cottage Grove, over 3,000 of you that marked your ballot with my name. It's a humbling and uplifting thing, and I hope to spend my time on the council encouraging a renewed bond and a strong bond between citizens and their government. After last week's tragic and disgusting lawlessness at our nation's capital, I feel it's more important than ever that we discredit and abandon the division, the violence and the vitriol that have come to define our national conversation and our national politics. These are not the pathways to sustained success, to understanding, to prosperity, or for happiness for any of us. Throughout our history, Americans have done their best work and made their most lasting contributions together. And togetherness will be essential in confronting the challenges of our future. Now is not the time to withdraw from our neighbors or treat each other as enemies or others. Rather, it is essential that we reach out to each other, reaffirm our common bond, our common goals, and plan together for a prosperous and inclusive future. I'm proud to represent the city of Cottage Grove, but I'm more proud to represent the 10,000 or so souls who call this beautiful community our home. I consider the word community to be a verb, the coming together of those with a shared purpose and common interest. It's my honor and privilege to community with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I'd like to thank the voters for giving me another term, and this is my plans to be my last term, but I'm going to give the next 2 years my all. And I'd like to thank the city staff. Mr. Myers' leadership in this city is very unique, and he has done an amazing job through this COVID. Every time an obstacle comes up, he's continuously working to address it. And I think that goes and it reflects throughout his whole staff, his department heads, his employees. They are all top notch. And I'm blessed to be able to be a mayor of something that works such it's like a fine-tuned watch. It's just perfect running. And so thank you all for the work that you do, make my life easier. I'd like to thank Commissioner Buck for being here tonight. I have a really good working relationship with the commissioner, and it's another blessing that you know, we got rains coming in. I get a text before I left work tonight that we got rains coming in. If you need anything, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to be focusing on the McKenzie because, you know, they got a potential of some slides up there. But that's how she has been since she's been in office. The snowstorm, I was getting text. All the fires that we've had, I get texts from her. I get phone calls from her at least once a month. So thank you for your leadership and your commitment to the community. One of the things we didn't do tonight was elect a council president or go over our committees. It was an oversight. I apologize for that. We will do it at the next meeting. And so we'll be talking about those. So the committees you're on this month, fulfill them. If you need to change them, let me know and we can go through that at the next meeting. And then the last thing is the removal of the liquor license. Richard, how do we do that? Could we do it now, or do we need to bring it back at next meeting?
We need to bring it back to a meeting. So if it is something that others want to do, we'll put it on the agenda since the mayor's requested it and bring it for a council discussion. As he said, it is a small thing, but it's a gesture and a start to move forward and show some support there. So we'll bring it forward to the next meeting. The next liquor license are in July, and we start putting the letters out in March. And so it might be in that first meeting in February that we actually put it on.
Oh, and one other, I got kind of wrapped up in there that I want to thank council. I've got an awesome council, and you guys really make my life easier too with the way you work. To have the support, the leadership, and the insight to ask the right questions. It is a true blessing to be working with you guys. Okay, that brings us to item 11, business from the city manager. Approval of the electric line right-of-way easement. Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor Gowing and Council. This evening, I have a request for Council to approve a right-of-way easement with Pacific Power. This item is directly related to the warming shelter site. In working with Pacific Power to bring permanent power to the site, they're requesting a easement to be granted to them to place a pad mount box there for a transformer and other utility purposes. Their request is for a 5-foot wide by 10-foot long easement that's located at the end of 12th Street. So if there's no questions, the recommendation to council is to approve the right-of-way extension easement with Pacific Power for the electrical service serving the warming shelter site and authorize the city manager to sign the easement.
Mr. Fleck.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council approve the right-of-way easement with Pacific Power for the electrical service serving the warming shelter site and authorize the city manager to sign the easement.
Second.
A motion with 2 seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right. Item B is memorandum of understanding extending the current collective bargaining agreement. Mr. Myers.
So we have a bargaining agreement with the police guild, and basically it represents our patrol officers and dispatchers. And it is a 2-year agreement, and our other labor units are a 3-year agreement. Their agreement expires on June 30th of 2021. The guild representatives provided a letter to the city staff in November requesting to begin negotiations and or discussions on possible resolution of the bargaining agreement and moving forward. In our first meeting with the unit, we suggested and gave a proposal of extending the agreement for a year. Since this is really a bad year to do negotiations on both sides of the negotiation table. So we held a discussion, and you have before you a memorandum which basically extends the existing contract for 1 year to June 30th of 2022. With the addition of one little market adjustment of 1% for all of the unit members. So in essence, it would be a 1% increase in wage in addition to whatever the COLA is, and the COLA under the current agreement is a 2% minimum and a 4% max. I'm anticipating, looking at the estimates of what's going on and what the CPIs are doing, that it will be 2%. It's not going to be higher than that probably by March. So that would be the only change. And so we're asking for council ratification of this memorandum. The guild has voted and approved it. And so have it before the council for your consideration and approval.
Mr. Boone.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I move that the memorandum of understanding between the city and the Cottage Grove Police Guild extending the collective bargaining agreement be authorized, or approved, sorry, and authorize the city manager to sign the memorandum of understanding on behalf of the city.
Second.
Okay. You got a question, Mr. Fleck?
Yeah, because I don't actually have a memorandum that outlines the 1% and extension of a year. Does that need to be in the motion?
No, because yeah, we should put it in the motion that's recognized. Yes.
Can we amend the motion that way?
I would like to amend the motion that way.
And I'll second it again. Thank you.
So any more discussion on that?
Good idea.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, business, city manager report.
So first off, I want to say thank you for everyone for the comments tonight, and thank you for Commissioner Buck for being here. We really appreciate working with you on the pallet shelters, and we're excited that those are up and going, and appreciate the county's support on that. Hopefully, all of you as council members have taken the opportunity, as this is the first agenda where all of the agenda items are searchable. So hopefully you searched for something on those documents. It isn't quite laid out the way we wanted. There's a lot of attachments and documents. We're going to try to combine those a little bit more, so there's not quite so many. It was a pain putting them on because there were so many. So we'll try to narrow that down as we work through, but they were searchable, and it actually works. And we had fun playing with it, testing it a little bit, so it does work. City Hall Day is coming up, and registration with the league is there. If anyone would like to attend City Hall Day, it is virtual. Please let me or Trudy know, and we will get you registered for the whopping fee of $0. So please, it's a great opportunity for us to get that chance to visit with our legislators, and even though we're doing it virtually and doing that. We do have an item that we need to ask for kind of your consent on, and we received a notice. Our coronavirus relief fund monies that we received from the state through the federal government had an expiration that all expenditures had to be made by the 30th of December 2020. With the adoption and with the passage of the appropriation bill and the signing of it, that deadline was extended to December 31st of 2021. So the Department of Administrative Services has sent out a notice to the cities and saying, hey, do you want to amend your agreement to include this extension at least until, and they're extending it to June 30th, 2021. We will have spent all of our coronavirus funds by December 30th. We've spent more than our coronavirus funds on eligible expenditures. So when we turn in the last round, which the last round window of reimbursement starts next week, we will have spent all of our funds. But in case something happens on the federal level where they decide to provide more relief funds, I'm going to go ahead and have DAS, Department of Administrative Services, amend our agreement to include the June 30th, 2021 date. So if that's fine with everyone, I think it's a no-brainer, but I just thought I'd let you know that that's what we're going to do. And if anybody has questions or concerns, let me know, and we won't do that, or we can answer those. But that's what we'll do, put that forward and do that. And for your information, at the next council meeting, we will be bringing a hefty resolution forward that will be reappropriating the reimbursements that we've received from the coronavirus funds, relief funds, back into the budget to put back money into park maintenance or building maintenance that we've used to do some of the projects that we've done under the funding. As I talked to Damien today from the newspaper, a lot of what we've spent that coronavirus money on is things. We tried to prioritize doing things that we could carry through into future years and use in the future for emergencies or for other operations, rather than using it for actual staff and payroll expenses, which, as the things changed and rules changed with the federal guidelines, we could have put all of money into paying for salaries for the police department, and I didn't think that was the thing that would prepare us for future stuff. And so we kind of saved those for if we have 50 cents left over at the end, then we'll bring that in and use it up. So we've used those funds. But that's where we're at. So at the next council meeting, you'll have a good sized resolution that will be moving that $328,000 into the appropriate line items that we used those funds for. And I covered my notes up. Just one more item on the warming shelters. There will also be one other indication that they are activated, and we're ordering and securing a flag. Apparently there's an official flag for warming shelters. We didn't know this when we started, but a white flag is what's supposed to be put out that they are activated, and we're actually getting it with the shelter on it and a person sleeping in one of the shelters. So we'll have that out on Main Street and one on the fence at the shelters so that people will be able to see that they are activated on those nights. That's all I have.
All right. So we have no attorney tonight, and there's no items removed from the consent agenda. So we are adjourned. Good night, everybody.